Hey, Fitzy here, back at it again with another one. It's time to get back on the 49 Chevy Fleetline. I got some fenders I gotta weld up. I'm gonna take you guys along, so stick around. It's been a while since I've been back at this one here. It's been sat here in the garage and I got it moved around here. It's after getting a little bit rusty. We've had some major damp weather here and things after rusting. Some of you guys have asked me about this many times. I usually never have trouble with rust like this here. A lot of this times it's just handprints and does this type of stuff. But this year, we had an amazing summer and the humidity was crazy. So I ended up getting some surface rust on this here, but that'll all come off and I gives it a quick scuff. But in the last video on this car, I turned around and I welded these ends in. I had lots of troubles on this one here, and I welded the other one in another video. But what I'm gonna do this one here now, I gotta get these welded up, so I'm gonna take you guys along. I'm gonna go ahead and weld up these fenders. But what I'm going to do, I'm not going to weld everything all up all at once, okay? There's so much welding to do. I'm going to take a section, weld it up, grind and dress it, section, grind it, weld it, grind and dress it, right? And I'm going to take you guys along, and any tips or anything that I come across or ideas to say, well, try this, try that, or I made a mistake here or whatnot, I'll take you guys along. So let's start welding this up. First thing I'm going to do is find a spot to start with, and I'm going to start off easy. I'm going to start right here and take a foot section around here somewhere, and I'm going to start welding it up. Now, there's a bit of surface rust and everything on this here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the grinder and just grind all this flat and get it all cleaned up so there's all just nice shiny metal again. I went ahead and I grinded it all off. Then you see me going back and dollying it. By grinding off the tops of all these here now, I can actually rub my hand across this and I can actually feel what it's going to feel like, okay? So if you got any low spots or anything like that, you can work it now. It's a good time to do it. It's not something I usually do a lot of. I usually just go ahead and I start welding everything up. But I've been finding here lately that if I turn around and after I spot weld, like these first few spot welds, and get it where I'm happy, when I grind it flat like this here, I can work it a bit and really fine tune it to go along. Now what I got to do here next is I got to start welding it up. I want to weld about every inch, so I'm going to start welding here, and I'm going to weld next to the one that's here, weld an inch, weld next to this one here, weld an inch, next to that one, just go on and get them all welded up to about here somewhere, and then I can come back then and we'll start continuing on from there. Plan is to, I got to let it cool off, and where this is a crown panel, I might be able to put a bit more heat into it. So, you know, there's less chance of warpage, but I'm afraid that this is going to want to pull away from me, especially right here, because this part of the fender had to be forced out. So I'm figuring this here is going to want to pull on me because of the strain from the fender itself. So I got to keep an eye on that as I'm going along. So let's get this welded up. I've learned now here the last 2 years or whatever, if I start cooling this with air, all depends on where the metal is too. Cooling shrinks metal, okay? If you cool this really quick, you're liable to get to a point where this will start to shrink on you and it'll tuck right in where the weld is to. Because how you shrink metal is you heat it up and then you cool it really fast. Cooling it with air or cooling it with water is the same process. So I like to let it cool naturally, so it actually everything goes back to where it was. And when it gets so far that I can actually touch it, I'll probably hit a bit of air over it just to try to cool it down even more. But when it's still hot and warm, I usually leave it alone and let it cool off for a while. Now I'm here welding it up, and I'm playing around with my settings on my welder because I had the welder set up for something else, so I'm changing my settings, turning down my wire speed, and trying to keep my heat in it. I like a lot of heat in my welds, okay? Also, when you start welding over, what I'm doing, I'm not welding next to the weld too, I'm overlapping the weld. If you look closely, I'm overlapping the weld. A lot of people have a problem with pinholes like, when they're welding next to the other weld. I overlap it a little small bit, almost like a stack of dimes, and I'll just keep going that way here. I'll let this cool off again, and I'll repeat the same process and get all that section here welded up. So I went ahead and I got more welded up, and you actually see the overlap, see? And you can see the gaps now that I got to do. But I'm still playing around with my heat settings here. I'll come back to that later because I'm setting this up here now because I got a lot of welding to do. So I'm just playing around. Each time I weld, I make a tune on my welder and then I start welding again. It's kind of hard to actually nail down settings on a welder. And everybody figures you put it at one setting and it's done. It depends on the type of metal. I got two different types of metal here from two different year cars. And I don't know, I'm not quite sure what the thicknesses are on this here. I'm going to check and find out what they are. But I think they're probably around, I'd say around 20 gauge. What's here? But I'm going to go ahead now and I'll get the rest of this welded up. And then we can start the grinding. Now I've gone on, I got it all welded up, overlapping each weld as I'm coming along, playing around my heat settings. Down here was a bit thin. I'll go over that now in a little while. So I had some holes to weld up. But other than that, this coming up along here came up nice. It's not what I call overly high. When you look at the welds, some there that are pretty high because that's the early ones when I'm trying to figure out my settings. I like to see if I can get a lot of heat into it and lay my weld down, okay? This is 023 wire that I'm using here now. You can use 030 or 035, but the problem you're going to have, and that's what I'm using here also, is 0.06 millimeter, and then there's 035 is 0.08, I think it is. So not to confuse some of you guys, because some of you guys go metric, some of you are standard. But anyway, this is 023 0.06 wire. I use that because you're using less material, okay? The thicker the wire, the bigger the weld is going to be, the more grinding you got. So that's one of the main reasons why I use 023 or 0.06 is because it's easier to grind and leaves less buildup, okay? All I'm going to do is just grind the head off of this here flat. Okay, I'm not going to grind this, not going to grind this. I'm just going to start knocking this down till it gets close enough that I can start feather edging it back into both of them. All I'm using is a 24 grit disc, okay? And I usually don't have a backing pads here for it, so I got 3 of them. I got a small one there, next one up, and I just trimmed it down, and that's all I use. I just trim it down with a pair of old tin snips I got kicking around, and I'll just start grinding this off here, and I'll keep working my way back and forth there till I'm happy that I can start bringing it down to the metal, and then I'll fender edge it out. Now you can see me here, I was grinding it off, and I gone down so far, and then I fender edged out. But when I got down here, you can see that I was left with a low spot along here, okay? Don't go grind it off. You can see I'm into the metal here, and I'm into the metal here. I don't want to go grinding too much of this here. What I'm seeing here now is that I have a low spot along here, okay? This metal came up and turned in, and it tucked a bit right on the weld. So I'm going to leave that alone there, and I'll come back and I'll re-weld that up again and regrind it again. If you start to try to grind that back and try to make this here smooth, you're going to make everything too thin. So don't be concerned about coming across this type of welds and having this problem here, because if it's only this big here, you can always weld it up again and make it look like it is back here. So I'm going to go ahead now, get all the rest of this grind up, and I'll bring it back and show you how much of it is like this and how much of it is like that. So now you can see I got it all grinded off, going along here. And you can see some spots it came nice and smooth, other spots were low here. Back here it got really bad, the whole section along here that's low. Now some people would say, well, let's dolly that up, right? Now I don't recommend hammer and dollying MIG welds, okay? A MIG weld is an extremely hard weld, and I find that they don't hammer very well. If you hammer them, they got a tendency to crack, and I prefer to just, when I'm working with MIG welding, I just assume weld it, grind it, weld it, grind it. I don't like hammering. Every now and again, if I got to hammer something because I got a bad tuck or something like that, what I prefer to do then is I prefer to go back, because if you look very, very closely, you'll probably see a hairline crack through your weld. What I like to do then is I like to go back. Once I get the shape where I want it, I'll go back and I'll weld over the actual weld that I had there before, and then grind it off, because a MIG will crack before it'll stretch, okay? So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to go back, I'm going to re-weld all these here, and take my time, same process as before, tack weld, tack weld, tack weld, tack weld, like that there. I'm not going to run no beads. That's a no-no when it comes to sheet metal. You start running 1-inch beads or even half-inch beads, you're going to be asking for trouble, because you're putting a lot of heat into it. So I'll get these welded up. So I found the beginning of the spot and the end of the spot, and I put one like every half-inch or so, like that there, beginning and the end, one in the middle. And over here, I found the beginning here, and I kept welding along, and I come to the end of it, and then I've done the same thing here. So that's the end of it, that's the end of it there, and in there it has to be welded in between there. All that there has to be welded, all that there has to be welded, all that there, and all that there. So get that welded up. I'm going to let that cool off first, and then get it welded up. As you can see, my little edge is gone now, okay? I got it all grinded off. I just got to grind this one up here, grind this one up here. Now that little edge that was there, if you're just putting something together, you don't have to weld that up. I'm just doing that for cosmetic look, okay? As long as the penetration is good, you're doing good. I'm just getting really fancy with it and dressing the metal so you don't see the seam at all, okay? Like if you wanted to and you're iffy about welding it up again and it's too thin or something like that, and you're going to blow holes in it, don't be afraid to leave them little edges, them little lower edges there, them low spots. You don't mind a little small low spot every now and again that you got to grind off or anything like that, right? So I'm going to go ahead now, get them grinded off, get them finished up. Now I went ahead and I got all this grinded off down through here, got it all done. I had a couple of spots down here I had to touch up again, so I touched them up, welded it up again. But what I'm going to show you now is what happens when you hammers on actual welds, okay? What I got going on here is I have a low spot right there. You can see the low spot going down through there. What I got to do is I got to tap this back, and by tapping it back I'm going to start moving the weld and everything on. So I'm going to go ahead now, get this back up where I want it, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. So you can see the strain that's right here. This is the edge of the weld, little on there, look. Okay, the weld passes right through this section here. I'm trying to hammer it up. If you look close, you can actually see this starting to stretch it all up there. So what I need to do is dolly that up a bit more now. I'm going to have to weld that in along there again because that's where it's cracking to, in through there. I'll weld that up and I'll grind and finish that off again. Well now, I've after welded it up, grinded it off, and every time I put a bit of heat in it, it pulls in because of the shape of this metal is in. It just keeps wanting to pull on me, okay? And it keeps the low spot there. Now I could leave it there and fill it up with fiberglass or whatever that type of stuff, but no, I worked it some more, and you can actually see how it cracks. It's cracked right on in through there now. Right, you can see the crack there. Trying to get through all the angles there so you can actually see the crack. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a piece out of here, put a whole new section in there, and be done with it because I'm having too much troubles with it. I don't like the way it's going. Once I put a little bit of heat into this here, this whole spot right here just pulls down, right? So I'm going to bring it up inside here, bring it down into here. Since this goes over here, I'm going to come over here with it, just put a large section there, square piece, and weld it right in there. You can see I just chopped it out. There's the piece that was in there with all the damage on it. Okay, now you can actually see here what it's doing. Look, see it pulling in right here. So I'm going to go ahead and get all this welded up here, get this dressed, and I'm going to work this last down here, because this is where I'm going to have the tuck going to happen right here. So I'll get all this here where I'm happy with it, get that all welded up, and then I'll grind it and finish it. So all I'm left with is this line down across here. So I'll go ahead. It's just basically going to weld all it up and grind it up. There you have it. When I got into this to start welding the piece in it, I remember start sizing this up here and the big gap I had down here. If I had to have my time back, I should have put a large strip in through here. Okay, because this is turned right here. And I know if I pulls this out here and dollies it, tries to weld across here, this is going to want to tuck here. So later on, because I don't want to go just filling all this up at weld, I'm going to come out here, cut this off here. Down here is pretty good, so I'll weld up this much of it first. And I'll actually put a piece in here. I'm not going to do that right now because I'm going to continue on and finish this top side. But as you can see, I got that welded up. And that's much better than what it was before. Likes that better there now. So I got that there all welded up. I'm going to go ahead now, clean this up down here, get all this welded up. It's more the same as this here. I want to see if I can get these tops welded in here today. So I'll go ahead now and get this all welded up and grind it up. I'm here running along doing the bead along here, and what I'm also doing now while I'm waiting for this to cool, I'm moving on the back side here, and I'm moving down, making sure everything's good, grind it all off, make sure it's flat, adjust any heights that I gotta adjust. If I gotta cut any welds and adjust the height, I'll do that then. And I'm actually tack welding that together back there. As you can see, I'm just moving right along here, just slowly taking my time. It's still warm there now, trying to let it cool down. It's pretty good here now. I could probably put another, I can put another bead on that there now. So, trick with this is here now, I've been playing around with my heat settings, and you can see I'm getting a real nice bead here now, right? On this arc captain, this is where I'm to, look. 20 and 7. That's 20 volts and 7 millimeters, or whatever that is, a minute. I've been playing around with it, turning it up hard. I love heat, okay? I like having a lot of heat. If I was to run a bead here now, I'll blow a hole in it, okay? I'll get a nice hot bead going here now, and I'll pulse it, and I'll let it go for a while. Just don't go tack, 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 tack. What I'm going to do here now is I'm going to videotape myself putting the next row of beads in there, and just listening to the weld, and just listen to the time that I'm there welding it on. I'm trying to put enough heat in it that I get good penetration right through to the other side, and it lays the weld down. Well, not too much heat that it'll actually burn a hole in it. So now you can hear the sound that the welder makes when I'm trying to get these real nice beads. I have a lot of heat there. You can see the heat that's in these welds, okay? I'm just letting them cool naturally now, okay? So this is the stuff that we talked about, a lot of people talks about, having to cut your corners, okay? It's warm. Having to cut your corners here and having round corners, don't have 90-degree corners, okay? I've been doing 90-degree corners for years, okay? The problem you got is when you're welding up, okay? When you're welding across this way here, okay? Your first instinct is to start come up here and go welding here. You're putting too much welding in the corner, okay? Here's your heat zone there, within that inch, all right? As you can see there now, I can weld there. If I had to start welding back to this here, I'll be putting too much heat in that zone. You talk about like there's a heat zone there, another heat zone there. That's a whole heat zone right there in that corner. That whole thing. So when you're welding across here, don't go turn around, turn and start going up this side here. Skip over this one, start welding up this one here, working your way here. Work your way back to the corner here, and work your way to the corner here. Same with work your way to the corner here, work your way back to the corner here. Don't ever have your welds actually overlapping this corner. That's where your heat comes from. I never have problems with too much heat in the corners. I don't have problems with the corners being high. I don't have problems with cracking. Cracking is something that you used to see on airplanes. When you're building planes and doing it in aluminum and stuff like that, they had to round the corners because the aluminum would crack in the corners, okay? And that was the reasoning for that. Automotive is not the same thing. You're putting body filler over this. If you've got to be worried about stuff cracking on you, well, you know, your welding's not your problem. You're going to have some cracks in your filler if that's the case, right? So, just something to talk about. I've heard a lot of people talking about rounding corners, stuff like that. I've never ever done it. It's a tidy job to do it. It's time consuming. But the biggest thing with it is just controlling your heat in the corners. Just figure that out and you won't have no problems. So as I was going along welding up this strip here, I started continuing on down here, done to here, and then I turned around, I tack welded them, come over here and ran a bead, then I went down to here, and done some more. So now that when you go down here, I only got 2 down here, but there's 3 or 4 beads up here, okay? Now that I got this welded up, I'm gonna take a break from that over there, and I'm gonna come back and grind all this up and finish this section off here, and I'll move on from there. So when I get this all grinded up, then I can actually go over here and start finishing welding that up in there. So I got everything up there, all the way around, coming up here to this point here. Got all that welded up, grinded up, finished, dressed. Now I'm up here, I gotta finish the nose section here now. I'm gonna come down here, work my way around, and I'm gonna end up with that last piece there where I got that low spot there, right? So let's get welding this up now. So I got everything welded up and grinded off all the way around. Coming down the side here, all the way along the bottom here. All I'm left with is this one little spot here now. All I'm going to do here now is I'm going to make a piece to go over all this here and just basically do a cut and butt of a large piece in through there just to make life a lot easier. I should have included that piece with it too, but I figured it's just as well now to make a piece now to go in there. I'll just come straight off of this here so it's tidy on the inside and come down here. I might even come back on an angle this way here and do it because this here is pretty good down here, right? So I'll go ahead now, get a piece made up and we get this fender finished. So here we are now. I got to make a piece for there. You don't get carried away with it. This is what I did. I cut up a piece of metal and I put a curvature on it. Cleaned it all up and just trimmed it up. I'm going to butt weld it across there where that line is to there now, just so that it don't look odd on the inside. It'd be two pieces welded in there like so. And I'll overlap that down there and I'll do a cut the butt here, cut the butt here, cut the butt there. This process, you know, all I got to do is just stick that on and on, weld it on, that's perfect. And then just start cutting it off. You can use the same thing for like when you're filling in marker lights or you got a rust hole in the middle of a panel. You can use the same type of idea of just overlapping the patch and just tack weld it on, then cut the fit and remove the piece from the inside. So to me, it's a lot faster. So let's get this done. As you can see, I just overlapped it, made the cuts around it. I started in a corner, cut the corner, dropped it. Then I started working my way down and around the patch. When I got down here and I welded it, I welded the bottom corners to 4 corners. And I didn't like it because this panel here was longer than this panel here. It was a high spot right along this edge here. So when you looked at it, this came sort of like this. So I cut the bottom clear and then I started from the top and worked my way down to get the panel in place. So I'm happy with the seams and all that type of stuff, right? So I got that placed there now. I won't bore you with more welding. I'm just going to go ahead now and get that all welded up. So I went ahead and I got it all tacked in place. There's one thing about patches that are this small. Our whole heat area is in one small area. So you got to be very careful. Like you're welding across here and welding down here, but your distance from your heat zone from here and your heat zone from here are pretty well touching each other, right? So you got to be very careful with it. Let that cool down now. And when that's ready to go, I'll go around and I'll tackle on the sides of the other ones again. Keep an eye on it because I may have to start just coming up one side and let it cool because it might be too much heat in it. If I went up this side and come down this side, right? The whole panel might want to pull away from you. So just keep an eye on how hot it gets and just get it welded up and just watch your temperatures, that's all. Just keep an eye on how the metal cools down and like don't go blowing it with cold air too much. It'll actually warp it all up on you. Just let it cool naturally. I got it all welded in. Feels pretty good so far. Might be a bit low down through there, I'm not quite sure yet. I'm going to go ahead now and get this all grinded up, see what it looks like. There you have it. With the piece all welded in, I got everything grinded off, everything cleaned up. When you look down the side of her now, you can actually look down at there now. And you can see the way the piece in, you can actually see the 2 low spots. Minor stuff, that is minor, right? You don't mind it like that, right? But I got the whole thing all welded in, all grinded up. Everything is in there now. That's permanently her home. Going around here, all that'll need now is it'll have to be skim and fiberglass put on it, and then fill the whole works of it. But that's the whole point of doing these cars anyway. Do all the custom work on it. That was a fair bit of work there, that was. I got close to 8 hours on this now. Just welding it up. I've run into some troubles with stuff. I had some issues down here. And I had to readjust things and stuff like that. And the metal was thin in a few spots. So I had to weld that up. But I'm pleased with it. Came out nice. Anyway, that's a bit more done on her. She's getting close. I gotta get the other fender welded up. I'll get that one done now tomorrow. But for now, I'm gonna leave this one here because there's a lot on this one here. And I'm trying to shorten up the videos a little bit. So anyway, I hope the tips were good. And until next time.